hope that you have been now able to work through all your Padlets and learning activities from Module 1 and 2. In this very short third module, I would like to take you through briefly a reflection really on what makes the Australian social policy context unique. So the goal is not to make a thorough or a rough analysis or a rough comparative analysis of Australian social policy and other countries, but just try to locate the different features of Australian social policy and what is unique about the Australian social policy context. So, briefly speaking, really, when we are speaking about social policy in Australia, many things come to our mind, including healthcare, family and child welfare, immigration-related policies, education, housing. So all these aspects in blue colors are maybe what many people would look at as, the biggest priorities of social policy. And under each of these, of course, you have subsets of, under healthcare, for example, you'd have aged care related policies, you know, and so on and so forth. Not so much really when it comes to things like income tax. Many times we don't look at it or we don't think of it as an important area of social policy, although, of course, it still affects, people's well-being and could still be considered in many respects as a dimension of social policy. Same with transport, same with environment and climate change. So now the question is whether there are specific differences between these aspects of social policy in Australia and other countries around the world. And what I did here is trying just to go through a few key concepts really which are often used in Australian social policy and which might vary when it comes to other countries, like countries of other countries of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which are also welfare states. So first of all, when speaking about Australian social policy, broadly, you'll find that many authors, including the key textbook we are using in this course by McClelland, describe Australian social policy as highly targeted, highly targeting, and majority of its payment being means tested. You can see examples around job seeker payment, for example, that as an example, you would be a job seeker and earn some cash benefits from the government. But if you get a part-time job, then that benefit might decrease. And if you end up getting a full-time job, then you just lose the benefit because you no longer deserve it. And this is quite different from specific other countries like Norway, which might target or which seem to be more focusing on universalism when it comes to, providing these kinds of benefits, or even the US or other countries where specific arrangements are different from the ones in Australia. So in Australia also, when we speak about social welfare and social policy in particular, there is a mixed, of different agents, including the government, of course, but also non-government actors. The market, as I said, all of these, again, are more involved in, providing social welfare and involved in social policy more broadly. And this again might be different from other countries like Canada, where social policy is more or less of a public-led business. And the US where it's just more market driven. So another consideration is Australian social policy being relatively low in expenditure compared to other um, OECD countries. So scholars, for example, described Australian social policy as or Australian social welfare state as being a wage earners welfare. So traditionally, Australia is known for its, wage earner focused form of welfare. Rather than just relying heavily on universal welfare, Australia historically focuses on policies that guarantee fair wages and full-time employment for people. And that, of course, reflect some levels of redistribution rather than just, spending high expenditures on generous support when people are not getting employment or even working and contributing. So there is also this aspect that Australian social policy is focused more on mutual obligations. And again, this you'll see it in programs around poverty reduction or programs around unemployment, that you are eligible to some cash benefits. For example, let's say job seeker benefit, as long as you are demonstrating that you are taking initiatives in looking for a job and, trying to be job ready rather than just, not doing anything at all and earning the benefits from the government. And again, this aspect also can differ quite different. I mean, it can differ from other countries of the same level as Australia. And of course, the historical and colonial legacies cannot be overemphasized. That Australian social policy is shaped by and built on the legacies of colonialism. And this particular aspect is very important when it comes to how contemporary social policies keep affecting, Indigenous Australians and, non-white Australians. And again, this aspect is to some respect similar to other countries like Canada, which also shares some colonial legacies, but not so much Nordic countries like Sweden or Norway, which were never colonized. So I would like to invite you now to reflect on what other unique features have you identified about Australian social policy, maybe in your reading or personal experience. Do you feel like in the Australian social policy context, there are things which might be unique to Australia or which might be different from other countries you might have lived in